and these are the books that I read in June. I read 47 books in June, but before I get into the 47 books that I read, I want to reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're going to shout out somebody. Today's shout out goes to Redhead Reading. So you will find a link to their channel up above and down below, so go over and subscribe to them. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel, subscribe to my Spanish booktube channel if you want to see this video in Spanish, and please give this video a like if you love bookish content. So out of the 47 books that I read in June, one was a classic, I read 1 fantasy, 27 picture books, 5 nonfiction, 1 middle grade, 1 science fiction, 6 manga and graphic novels, and 5 activity books and puzzles. So as always, I'm going to start first with the classic that I read. I read the short story novella. It's kind of too long to be a short story. I would say it's a novella by Rudyard Kipling. It's The Man Who Would Be King. This is a strange tale of 2 men who try to become kings of Kafiristan by trickery and a show of military strength. And years later, one of the men tells the story of how they fooled the natives into thinking that they were gods. This is not Kipling's best work. It's told from like an unreliable narrator, and that always bugs me. The story is kind of disjointed and chaotic, and there are a lot of specific like cultural things that are just kind of never explained. But it does have that Kipling flavor, that kind of mystic mood, and the feeling that anything could happen in the distant mountains of the world. I ended up giving it 3 stars. This is actually my second time reading this, and I think both times I've just kind of given it 3 stars. I read Summers at Castle Auburn, and this was such a wonderful surprise. I did not expect to love it as much as I did, but I really, really did. I guess I was expecting just kind of a normal fantasy, this and that, and then it just completely blew me away. Corey is the illegitimate daughter of a nobleman, and she visits the castle every summer in order to be groomed and trained for a life among the nobility. The rest of the year, she lives with her peasant grandmother in the village, just learning to be an herbalist. As Corey grows into a young woman, she begins to realize the depth of the court intrigue around her half-sister, Alessandra. She determines to do everything she can to help her sister, and she quickly realizes that there are others in the castle who need her help as well. There are these magical elven people who are being held as slaves in the castle. I just loved everything about this book. The magic, the world building, the characters, the plot, the writing style, everything came together for such an amazing story. The characters are really complex, and their relationships between each other are very complex. There's a lot of layers there, a lot of court intrigue and spying and different power grabs that are happening that you have to navigate around. The writing is really powerful and emotional. The dialogue just draws you in to what's going on with these characters. The magical skills of the elven people was really original and interesting. It's just brought in this really imaginative level to the story that I thought was amazing. And there are a couple of sweet romances and really meaningful sibling relationships that I was like, oh yes, I am so here for the sibling relationship. I loved it so much, and I gave it 5 stars. I also reread one of my favorite middle grade, I guess you could call it a classic. When was it published? But 21 Balloons was a reread for me. I loved it the first time, and I was like, you know what? I haven't read this in a few years. It's time for a reread. This is the story of Professor Sherman. He is sick of teaching mathematics to snot-nosed children, so he decides to go on a year-long balloon voyage around the world. However, within days of setting off, his balloon crashes on the island of Krakatoa. He discovers the secrets of an unusual society that is flourishing there on the island, where fabulous diamonds are available to anyone. This is such a fun and entertaining story. There are all these funny little details and explanations about the unusual society. So most of the narrative is just explaining things, but it's really interesting. It's so hilarious and funny and weird and whimsical that I don't really mind that there's not a ton happening in the plot because it's all just so fun. If you're looking for a classic that is short and lighthearted, this is the one for you. I gave this 5 stars. And now a couple of the manga and graphic novels that I read. I read Case Closed Volume 1. This is a very, very lengthy manga. It is, I don't even know how many volumes there are. It's something like 60 volumes or something insane. And there's an anime with it as well. And I had never heard of it before. So I was like, okay, are we ready to jump in with this? Jimmy is in high school and he's already a famous detective a la Sherlock Holmes. He's solving cases around Japan, but he gets into trouble with a gang who force feed him a chemical that makes him shrink down to look like he's about 6 or 7 years old. He's still solving mysteries, but no one will really listen to him because he looks like a child. I loved this fun manga. It is so hilarious and silly. Jimmy is a really smart character and I liked all the supporting characters and the mysteries that he solved and everything. The artwork is really good and I was just laughing through several of the scenes. I will definitely be reading more from this series. I don't know if I'm gonna read all like 60 of them or however many there are, but I'm definitely gonna read a few more of these. These are a lot of fun. And I also finally read Nimona. I know, I am really, really late to this party, but I'm so glad that I finally sat down and read it. Supervillain Lord Blackheart has a new sidekick, Nimona. She is a shapeshifter and they team up against Lord Goldenloin to prove that the heroes aren't all they seem to be and the villains aren't that bad. However, Nimona is keeping secrets and Lord Blackheart begins to wonder if his sidekick is a little more dangerous than she appears to be. This comic is so funny and imaginative. I just loved all the witty one-liners and the weird characters, and the story really kept me guessing. I loved just gradually learning the backstory of all the characters. This is so much fun from start to finish, and I gave it 4 stars. All the rest of the books in this video are books that I received from a publisher in exchange for a free and honest review. So another graphic novel that I read is Kyle's Little Sister. This follows Grace as she goes into middle school, kind of in the shadow of her older brother, and he's really popular and all the girls like him. So then Grace starts to worry that her new friends only like her because they're trying to get close to her brother. I really loved how complex the characters are in this book. They're all navigating these different new relationships and old friendships and weird sibling dynamics. But they all have such vivid personalities and different ways of approaching problems. The artwork is really excellent. Every page is brightly colored and I just loved it. The character designs are really distinct and memorable. The writing and the dialogue just really pull you into the story. I was hooked from the very first page, and I gave this 5 stars. I also read Wildflowers, which is such a cute little comic about these sisters who are playing pretend out in the woods, and they meet these wildflowers who can talk to them. This was so whimsical and beautiful. At one point, I was actually so touched at just like the positive messages and the beauty of the artwork and everything that I actually started crying because it was just like, oh, my childhood. It's so beautiful. I also read La Matadragones, which is a collection of short stories of Hispanic fairy tales that are done in a graphic novel kind of comic style. And I loved these. Man, talk about taking you back to your childhood. These are fantastic. These are done in that classic fairy tale style where things are a little nutty, a little crazy in fairy tales. And I also read Narwhal's School of Awesomeness. I've read, I think, 1 or 2 other of the Narwhal and Jelly books, and they're so silly and cute and adorable, and the artwork is just so sweet. Oh my goodness, I just love Narwhal and Jelly. They are so hilarious. I also read the first book in a sci-fi trilogy, The War of Realms, and the first book is Conquests and Consequences. Alexander is the heir to the throne of Thera Enti. After a failed assassination attempt, he is stranded on a remote jungle planet, and the kingdom is thrown into chaos. There is also a pirate captain who is caught in the middle of the war, a group of castaways looking for rescue, an old priest who preaches for repentance, And of course, the governments of different planets are vying for power. This book has such an epic scope. The people of Thera Enti begin this fight against oppression, and Alexander has to think about what it really means to take up this mantle of the throne. And of course, there's a prophecy, and there's a mysterious key that might lead to a treasure, but no one can unlock its secrets. I mean, this book has everything you could ever want in an epic space trilogy. The plot is full of so much action and twists and betrayal and trials. It really kept my interest. There was actually this really big space battle at the end of the book, and usually when there's a big battle or some kind of fight scene, I'm like, okay, skippy skip, and I just kind of skim it and skip ahead because I get bored with the battle scenes. But this one, no. I was riveted to every sentence because the battle scene is like this big puzzle where you're trying to figure out how are they going to trick the enemy and what kind of mind games are they going to play that's going to help them to win this battle. And I was amazed at the battle scene. I mean, I did not skip any of that battle scene, believe me. It was just so fascinating, and it's full of these really emotional moments with the characters as well. They kind of have to face their worst fears and find the courage to keep going. Just so good. And this is by a Christian author, so these really deep themes about spiritual warfare and what it means to have faith in God. I mean, they're just these super powerful spiritual messages that are perfectly woven in with the story. And these characters go on each individual spiritual journeys. At one point, I was actually crying. I mean, I was like bawling my eyes out because the spiritual journey of this one particular character was so beautiful. It touched my heart. It was so good. I loved so many of the characters in this book. Y'all know I'm a character-driven reader, and oh my goodness, the main character, Alexander, and the supporting characters are also interesting. One of my favorite characters was the pirate captain, because he has all these witty one-liners, very much like a Han Solo type of character. And another favorite character was the old priest. He's called the faithful voice because he's a prophet of God. And he teaches Alexander and kind of mentors him, but he gives like the most robust speeches that just had me really inspired. And the villains are equally well written. Like I was like, oh, that nasty villain. Oh, I just hate them so much. This is such an amazing book. And I cannot wait to read the rest of the trilogy. This one got me hooked. I also read several nonfiction books. I read How to Grill Vegetables, and then I gave that book to my dad for Father's Day. He really loved it, and we immediately grilled some vegetables and tried out some of the recipes, and they were delicious. I also read Aguas Frescas Paletas, refreshing Mexican drinks and frozen treats. So because I grew up in Mexico, this one is really exciting, and this is some of my favorite recipes. I also read Take Me to Museums, The Young Explorer's Guide to Every Museum in the World. And I read Book Nerd, which is kind of like a little coffee table sort of gift book for book nerds. Very cute. And I read Top Secret, Spies, Codes, Capers, Gadgets, and Classified Cases Revealed. I also read some activity books and reviewed a couple of puzzles. I did the Dare to Dream 1,000-piece puzzle and the Free to Just Be puzzle. I really enjoyed jigsaw puzzles. Every once in a while, I just want to sit down and listen to an audiobook and do me a little puzzle. I also reviewed the Summer Brain Quest between grades pre-K and K5. This has such cool activities for little kids and little pages that they can color and all kind of neat stuff. I mean, these Brain Quest things are really cool. And I reviewed a book about mom with words and pictures by me, so I'm gonna hang on to this for a future Mother's Day gift. And Paint by Sticker Kids Outer Space, which is such a fun, relaxing sticker activity book. I just love stuff with stickers. And now for the 27 picture books that I read, I have divided them up into their star ratings. So the 5-star books are Phoebe Dupree is Coming to Tea, Sweet Pea Summer, It's Bath Time, Indestructibles, and Baby Let's Rhyme, Indestructibles. C is for City, I Don't Want to Go to School, Un Poco Perdido, Cuckoo en el Mar, Peekaboo in the Ocean. Next Stop, Kindergarten, Daniela y las Chicas Pirata, Una Tarde Super Increíble, Un Regalo para Ama, Sophie's Seashell Scramble, Atticus Catechus, Dakota Crumb, Tiny Treasure Hunter, and Noah's Seal. The 4-star books were Cosas de Bruja, La Frontera, El Viaje con Papá, Al Carnaval, Una Celebración en Santa Lucía, I Like the Wind, F is for Farm, and Vivan las Uñas de Colores. The books I gave 3 stars were William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, Berta's Boxes, and Las Cajas de Berta. And then the books that were 2 stars, Esta Caca es Mía, and Bobby the Bear and His Missing Dinner. And those are the books that I read in June. That was a lot. Almost ran out of breath there at the end. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what was one of your favorite books that you read in June. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.